Hi guys, Mike Pfeiffer with Pfeiffer Hobby. I know the light's not too good in here tonight, but what I'm going to do is a decoder install on the new Kato SDP40F. We're going to put in a Digitrax DN163K4A, and this one here, I have two of them, and this one here happens to be 176/9212, and the other one I think is 11. Anyway, without further ado, let's get started. Okay guys, this is the new Kato SDP40F. It's in the Santa Fe. I have two of these. I've already installed a decoder in the one that you see sitting down here. I've also installed a 1016 coupler on the back of it, and it does take a Microtrains 1016, which is a longer shank, which I think I need on there because these locomotives are pretty long. But anyway, we're going to put a Digitrax DN163K4A in this thing. This is designed for the Glacier Express and other Kato locomotives for the EU. I don't know what that means, but nevertheless, this decoder goes in this locomotive. However, when you install it, it installs in this locomotive backwards. So once you get it installed in the locomotive, you have got to set the normal direction of travel to reverse to get the locomotive to go forward when it's going forward. But I'll get into that later. Anyway, let's get with this. Okay, the first thing we need to do before removing the shell is to remove these grab irons that go up right here. You don't have to take the front one off or anything, but that one there and the one on the other side, as well as the two on the back right here, because the body lifts off and separates from the undercarriage down here, which actually holds the frame together. So let me get those off of there and we'll go from there. Okay, you can see that I have removed those grab irons. Okay, now we're going to get into how to take the shell off. One thing I did want to mention is, when you take those off, be sure you have a good pair of real small tweezers to hold on to them, and put your finger over the top of them as you pull them off with the tweezer so that you don't lose them. And then I recommend sticking them in your box so you don't lose them. And the same thing applies when we put them back on, because they go flying and they get lost very easily. They're pretty tough not getting broken, but they get lost very easily. So I would recommend that. Now I'm going to show you how to get the shell off. Okay, it's a little bit hard to see in this picture, but where your glass inside of the locomotive is actually what holds the shell in place. And I'm trying to get it in the picture. This lift ring right here, your glass retainer is right behind here. So you've got to stick a sharp blade up underneath, in between the shell and this piece here on both sides, and gently lift up on the shell, and it will separate right across here. This black part that you see down here where that lift ring is part of the chassis, which holds the bottom of the chassis together. So your release is just above those on both sides, and you're going to need something flat. Toothpicks don't work too well. I tried that. Up in the front, I'm trying to get it in the... okay. Now, there's a lift ring right here. And right behind this long part of this lift ring, your other glass retainer is right in here. And like I say, all four of these points, you're going to have to stick something flat up in there and pry the glass away from the chassis itself a little bit and kind of rock the shell to one side, and you will see it come loose. Then what I do, and let me see if I can back up a little bit, I hold the chassis like so, and with the blade up in here, I just rock the chassis back a little bit. And once I get it rocked off and unlocked, then I just hold my thumb against the shell to keep it up off the chassis. And then I turn the thing around and do the same thing on the other side, and eventually you're able to lift the shell straight up. But that's where the retainers are, and I'm going to remove these. And I'll try and do it on camera. It may be a little bit boring because it may take me a while, and I may omit it, but that's where you need to go. It takes a little bit of work, but you can see that I have the back of the chassis lifted up. You can see the frame underneath there. It's not an easy task here, but persistence prevails. Once you get the body shell out just a tiny bit, you can see the glass down in there where it locks in place. Okay, now you can see that I have the shell lifted up ever so slightly all along. And now it's just a matter of lifting the shell up, straight up and off, like so. Now let's get to putting the decoder in. Okay, here's the original board. You can see that we have a couple of tabs locking the existing board in place right here. And what you want to do is you want to just stick your hobby knife up underneath there and then rotate your hobby knife forward. And you can see that it just pops the decoder right out of there. Okay, the next thing we need to do is we need to remove this little plastic retainer, which just unclips. Let me see if I can get it in the picture. It just unclips from the top of the decoder like so, which leaves you with this. And then we want to very gently, and I cannot stress too much, gently pull these motor tabs off, because we're going to reuse them on the new decoder. And let me see if I can get them in the picture. These are the parts that we're going to reuse on the new decoder. Okay, here's our new decoder. And this end up here, which is normally the back, is actually the front on this particular locomotive when we install it. The piece of Kapton tape that's on the bottom here, on several locomotive installs, so several decoder installs, you need this piece of tape as an insulator between the frame and the motor tabs. But on this, you're not going to need it for that. But we will need it later, so I'm going to stick it up here to my light. And here's our decoder. Now we're going to put the motor tabs on this decoder. Okay, you can see that we have our motor tabs back on. And they should fit snugly enough that you can turn the board around without them falling off. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put the little plastic retainer back on. And you can see, maybe if I get this in the camera, you can see that there's a little, some kind of electronic part there, and there is a indent in this retainer. The indent of the retainer goes around that small part. And let me see if I can get this on here. I know it's probably not going to be in the camera. And it just, with the motor tabs in place, it just snaps over the motor tabs. Like so. That's what you should have. And if you look at the decoder from the end, let's see here. If you look at the decoder from the end, there should be a slight inward bend to those two motor tabs. And now we're going to stick it in the chassis. Okay, when we install this, this decoder, these two little tabs go to the back like so. I don't like how loose it fits. So what I've done on all the installs that I've done so far is I just happen to have some double-sided foam tape. And I don't know how well you can see that. but I just stick a little tiny square of double-sided foam tape on the little plastic piece that goes across there. And I leave the paper on the top half so that the decoder can slide on it. And it's kind of a trick, and I don't know if I can do this on the camera or not, but when I install this, I kind of tilt the decoder up, push down on the foam tape some, and then I start the decoder in there. Sorry about this, but then I have to take a toothpick and push down on the foam tape to get the decoder to slide in. I don't know if you saw that. Now you can see that that foam tape is underneath the head of the decoder there, and the decoder is sticking way up in the air here. But when I take and push the motor tabs, and then, by the way, down in here, and I don't know if we can get it on camera, you can see that there's a slot. Let's see, you can see that there's a slot right in there that the motor tab goes into. And that prevents it from touching the side of the frame. So we don't have to worry about anything touching the side of the frame here. We only have to worry about it touching the motor. But at this point, once you've got that, and this doesn't have to be foam tape. It can be, you can put anything of substance underneath there that's relatively soft that'll hold that decoder up against the frame there. I'm just not 100% confident in the connection without having some kind of upward pressure there. But anyway, as I'm pushing the decoder backwards slightly, I go ahead and slide the motor tabs down into the frame, the plastic part of the frame, and then the front part of the decoder here has, the front part of the decoder is supposed to slip under some tabs there too, but I've already pushed the decoder too far back. So I need to lift up on it and slide it forward just a tiny bit. Now, let me see here, let me get a pointer. Now, the edges of the decoder right here are slipping down behind these tabs that they go under, and now I'm just going to slide it back. Did you see it slide right there? I think you did. And when it's all the way back as far as you can push it, it's fully seated. And I will show you that. You can see the decoder is seated with the foam tape underneath it pushing up on those tabs, and you can see the front is fully seated in there. Once that decoder is fully seated and you know that the motor tabs have gone down against the motor, which is pretty evident when you slide it down, it either goes or it doesn't go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of that piece of the Kapton tape that we got, and we're going to put it across the top of this decoder to keep it from having a tendency to ever slide forward. It can't really because there's little lips back here, but we're just going to be sure anyway that the decoder doesn't pop up out of there. So I'm going to do that and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, you can see my piece of Kapton tape directly over the top of the decoder just to hold the decoder down in there, make sure it doesn't go anywhere. And now your installation as far as the decoder goes in should be complete at this point. And what I would suggest at this point is taking your locomotive and going and test running it, which is exactly what we're going to do. Okay, here we are at our trusty test track. You can see that I'm on 03. The power is on, track status is on. I'm on DCC here. And if I was to put this camera down a little bit and turn on the headlight, you will see that the rear light comes on, which when this decoder is installed in particular applications, that is forward. But on this locomotive, like I said, it's reverse. If I switch to reverse, it's in forward. So our forward and reverse is backwards. So what we're going to do is, that is CV29. I don't know what the setting is to make it forward or reverse because I do all my stuff with JMRI software, but I'm going to go show you how I do it. Okay, I don't know how well this will come out on camera, but we know this is a Digitrax decoder, so we're going to select that. We're going to click the Series 3 silent feedback. We're going to go all the way down the list here to the DN163K4A. We're going to click on that, which opens up our programmer. What I'm going to do is go to the basic tabs, which allows us to change addresses. I don't know what the address on this particular locomotive is, so we'll leave it alone at the moment. But right here you see it has normal direction of travel. and it's set to forward right now. We're going to set that to reverse. We're going to leave it on address 3, and we're going to write changes to the sheet. Now let me get down here. Write changes to this sheet. And you will see the locomotive make some motion. If I get back here, you can't really see it. If I get way back here, you may see the lights flicker on the locomotive, and then way over here you'll see the red light come on real heavy on the PR3. That means that it's programming, and you don't want to touch that until that red light goes off. It's okay when it blinks randomly, but not when it's on steady. So I'm going to hit write changes to sheet. You can see the locomotive flashing, and I think you can see the red light is on solid, and now it's off. That means that it's done programming that function, that reverse function, into this decoder. So now we're going to go back out here and try it again. Okay, now you can see that the forward headlight is on, and the box here is in forward, and we're going to give it a little bit of gas, and there she goes. And we'll try reverse. Reverse and the headlight, or the reverse light works. Back to forward. So now I am confident that this decoder install is complete. Now we're going to stick the shell back on, put on all the grab irons, and we're going to come back out here and make sure she runs. Okay, I'm going to stick the shell back on and stick all the grab irons on, and I'll try and speed this up when I create the video. But the shell, obviously all the light boards and everything stay in place, and you just kind of make sure it's centered on there properly and fits down there pretty easily, and then just snap it down. And that's all there is to it. Now we're just going to put the grab irons on the front and back, and we'll be off and running. Okay, there we go. The only thing we would need to do from this point forward is we're going to go back there and retest it. I'm going to set the locomotive number, and we're going to retest it and make sure it's still flying and show you how the headlights look. And I would, with this done, like I had said earlier, I would add the 1016 microtrains couplers to it to give them a little bit longer shank and allow these long locomotives to get around tighter radiuses. So let's go give this thing a test again. Okay, here we are back at the programmer. I have clicked the long address, the long 2-byte address. I put in 5253, which is the locomotive number. I still have the normal direction of travel as reversed, as I said. And now we're going to go down here to the corner and we're going to write full sheet. And if I go back over here, you can see the red light on the PR3. Now the red light is off. That means we're done programming those functions into this locomotive. So let's go give it a test. Okay, here's our locomotive. I've got the address in is 5253, which is the locomotive number. And I'm going to turn on the headlight for you. You can see that we have a nice bright headlight. By the way, the Santa Fe version of this locomotive has a nose headlight, while the Maersk has a upper headlight up here. And they've replicated both as they should be, apparently. Anyway, I think the light looks good. We're going to just run it up and see what we got. One thing I do notice on this locomotive that I don't care for too much, but it's an easy fix for me. When it comes around, take a look at the horn on the roof. The handrails match perfectly on this guy, but look at that horn. Ooh, ugly bright blue. We're going to fix that. We're going to put some dark blue on it. But nevertheless, our decoder install, which is what we're concentrating on, is done. You can see that we have, it runs very well at low speed. Let's check our reverse. And let's see if our reverse light is on. It is. I would say it's a success. Okay, everybody, as you can see, we got it installed and it runs great. And I hope you enjoyed this video. And as always, guys, you know the drill. We'll see you the next time.